वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनम् देवकी परमानन्दम् कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। Namaste everyone.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste. Let's continue with the 9th chapter.
Okay.
The shlokas. You have just taken up actually 12th shloka last time, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th. And further we proceed because basically there earlier he divided into two different groups. One group is the one who says that Mokha Shaha, Mogha Karmanaha, Mogha Jnana Vichetasaha. That means those who are lost in the useless, purposeful life of activity, and then with that desires, which will not really take to anywhere else. And that is a kind of thing. And Rakshasi Masuram Chaiva Prakritim Mohinim Shritaha. They are caught up in the Prakriti and then they continue to Asurim Cha. That means they may be good, but then they may also do something which is harmful when it is not for them. So therefore, basically, this is one group that he said. But on the other hand, he has given us a second group where he says that Mahatmanastumam Partha. This is in the 13th Sutra. Bhajantananya manasoho jnatva bhutadim avyayam daivim prakritimashitaha. These are the Mahatmas. That means to say these are the people who are in the opposite direction, in the other direction. That means to say one is in the downward direction, the other is in the upward direction. The very idea also gives another important picture, that is, if you would say that, okay, let me just manage the things with the very simple ideas of life and then go ahead and do whatever that is there. There are possibilities that these people can slip down into evil methods, evil ideas drawn by that, because basically they always find an excuse that what else can we do? The world is like that, though we have to follow the world. So like that they come to some conclusion, they come to some adjustment in the Asuri Sampat, Asuri side, as if that they have something, they cannot do it. Actually, this is where a large number of people are there. Later on in Krishna, in another context that Krishna brings about this idea, saying that average man is in between, only about say 20% is on the good side, 20% on the bad. 20% are committed to go in the upper direction, 20% are committed to go downward direction. But what happens is that these are supposed to be dharma and then they are adharma. In between the people, that they are normal. They just keep following wherever that the whole society is turned. If this 20% of the people who are bad, if they become influential, they are corrupt and then they always tell the lies and then they make out of negative things that they want to make their life, that becomes like more powerful, and then they become very effective. Then the rest of the in between the people, that 60% of people, they just turn towards that, and then they follow it. It giving an impression that 80% of the people are bad, but the rest of the people, they turn towards that because that seems to be a life of convenience. Whereas if these 20% of people who are good, when they become impressive and they become like role models, they set an example in the society. Then what happens is that this in between the 60% of the people, they turn towards that. So we require this kind of people who are not only good, but they're impressively good. So this is what we really require, kind of a people who turn towards that. And these are what is called as Mahatmanaha. That's why he says Mahatmanastupamam Partha Daivim Prakriti Mashitaha and Bhajan Ananya Manasaha Jnatva Bhutadi Mavyayam. So, on the other hand, hey Arjuna, the great souls, Mahatmanaha, who have embraced the divine nature, so they consciously they try to take up this divine nature as their own, knowing me as a primary source of all lives. God is there, God takes care of everything, and He is there as somebody behind, whether it is perishable, imperishable, whatever that is there, everything is there in this world, and He is all lives and the imperishable, eternal, and they worship me constantly with none else in mind. Jnatva bhutadim avyayam. Avyayam, that means to say unending, undiminishing kind of a thing, divyam, and that is there behind all these things, bhuta, all these things, whatever that is there. Ananya manasaha, that means to say there is no doubt at all, there is a constant there is a constant assurance in their mind that this is something which is taking care of it. Did they see anything? Do they know anything? There is nothing like that. It is just only the Shraddha which makes them to go in that particular direction. This is so very important. So they have Shraddha, they go in that direction, come what may. And these are the people who are also successful in the society, but at the same time, they set the example for many people to go in that direction. These are what is called as Mahatmanaha. Now, these are the people who believe in God, who see that the God is there to take care of everything. Because what happens is that ultimately what they see, the positivity in the world, they all see that it is because of the divinity. So many things which are in the positive direction that are happening. Satatam kirtayanto mam jatantascha drudavrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. This is the 14th sutra, last time we have seen. Satatam kirtayanto mam. It is nirantaram, satatam, that means constantly, all the time. Kirtayanto mam. That means to say recognize, and then they praise me all the time. Praise me in the sense that it is because of me all these good things that are happening. Whatever positive thing that they see are happening because of me. And this is what is Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. Yataschanta Drudavrataha. That means they are Drudavrataha. They are absolutely resolved very strongly under that. And Namasyantaschamam Bhaktya Nityayukta Upasate. Here we need to understand that Nityayukta is in the resolve, ever united with me through meditation, worship me with single-minded devotion, and Namasyantaschamam Bhaktya. This bhakti, this is where he brings about the first time the concept of bhakti. Now, what we talked earlier about the Shraddha, this seemed to be like one step ahead in the name of bhakti. The same Shraddha is something which is there when we have the elderly persons, learned scholars, or the books that are there, we have a Shraddha for that. Like, for example, Bhagavad Gita, we have a Shraddha. Ramayana, we have a Shraddha. And Shastras, Upanishad, we have a Shraddha. So Shraddha means basically that we do not dispute that whatever that is there, we accept it, and that helps us to explore further. Last time also, I was in one occasion I was saying that you can also investigate into object with a doubt. That's what is the way science progresses. But we also investigate with an idea of acceptance. And only thing is that with this is what is called as Shraddha. When we accept the thing with the help of Shraddha, that means basically even if there is a failure, or when we investigate, trying to investigate without the Shraddha, then what happens is that we say, do the experiment and we conclude saying that no, this is wrong. Whatever somebody said is something which is not right. So we conclude in the wrong direction in that way and then leave it alone. Whereas the moment that we have Shraddha, we say that the what they said is right. Only thing is that I am falling short of my investigation. Meditation. I am falling short in my meditation, therefore I'm not experiencing that. So therefore, that what else can I do in the form of meditation? What else can I add, include? So this is what you try to see that the slackness is within you, not in the object that is there outside, or the statement that is given outside. At best, what you see is that you just leave it aside, but you say that there may be another method, there may be another way that presenting this idea. So that you continue to proceed, like the way that whatever that is the expression that is given by Kabir may not apply for me. Then I look at whatever that is given by Mirabai, and that appeals for me. That's okay, fine. Otherwise, that there are so many other saints who are given the idea, and then we follow that. So my investigation continues. This is where Shraddha is there. But Shraddha, one step ahead, is what is called as Bhakti. And that is where he says, Mam Bhaktya Nityayuktaha Upasate. Now, every moment, whatever that they are spending time with, Upasate. This Upasana word is very beautiful. Asana means it's a seat, and Upa means close, sitting close to me. Upasate means that sitting close to me. That means to say, feeling my presence around me, feeling that I am along with that, I am associated with them. And this can only happen in the case of Bhakti. Bhakti is the moment where the God becomes closer to the individual. We feel that closer to individual. This is the way it is. And this Upasana, Nityayukta, Namasyantascha, that means to say, devotee in firm resolve, Dhradavrataha, and united with me through meditation. This kind of a meditation is different kind of meditation what you are normally introduced idea of meditation from the Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, where that's why their meditation is dhyana, and here meditation is supposed to be upasana. That means to say feeling close to the presence of divinity. It's like the way that when the mother, small little kid is there and then sleeping, mother gets up to work in the kitchen, then the child gets up and immediately runs to kitchen because child gets the information, some intuitively recognizes that mother is not there. So mother does, leaves the pallu there, the sari there, so that the child holds on to that, and then mother goes to work in the kitchen. So the presence is there. That means child feels the presence of the mother. It is this way. In fact, when we have our pet dog, comes and sits next to me, whatever I may be doing. But then he is just there. It is my presence that he feels like that. Therefore, he exists. So this bhakti is where that you feel the presence of the divinity, which is working around you, which is working everything. Satatam kirtayanto mam. It's not the question of doing some bhajan, kirtan, and all those things. They are fine. They are the means for developing this kind of an attitude. But that kirtana, that bhajan, all those things can be an hour, can be 2 hours. And not only that, while singing bhajan, they also dance, they also sing various instruments, also they beat. All those things are there. That means to say, with all that paraphernalia, we are trying to create that feeling of the presence of divinity. So they're all various means, very external. And then once you feel it, then you start really working within you, in your heart, that you start feeling it. And that's what is Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. Yatantascha Dhridavrataha. Slowly, steadily, so absorbed in that. Dhridavrata, that means very firm devotion, with a firm mind that you go with that. And Namasyantastumim Bhaktya Nityayukta Upasate. Now, Jnana Yajnena Chapyante Yajanto Mamupasate Ekatvena Prutatvena Bahudha Vishwato Mukham. Ekatvena Prutatvena. This is something which is very important. He says that Jnana Yajnena Chapa Anye Yajanto Mam Upasate Ekatvena Prutatvena Bahudha Vishwato Mukham. Others, that means the character until about 14th shloka, whatever he said, this is one category of people. From almost like 12th to 14th, that what he said is the category of people. Now he takes about Anye. Anye means the others. Now, earlier division is that those who have wasted their life to the persons who are accepted to the divinity. This is one category. Now, those who accepted the divinity also, now he says that there are two categories. One category is what they have said, what he said earlier, and second thing is Jnana Yajnena Chapyanye Yajanto Mam Upasate Ekatvena Prutatvena Bahudha Vishwato Mukham. A broad, in the case of people who become positive, in the case of those people who become spiritual or who are theist, that means to say believe in the God in the higher force or anything like that. And out of these category of people, that there are two different categories that are there. One category of people are the people that they would like to see ekatvena, that means between the sadhaka and the God or the sadhya. There is no gap between that. It's all one. The second thing is those who want to maintain the distance between the sadhaka and the God, divinity. Divinity is there, and then I'm separate from the divinity, and this is the way that somebody can feel. That's the way another person can feel. There's also feeling inside. These are the two different types of feeling. And the first one is the way that who feels that there is no two things, there is only one thing. These are the people who are the people, intellectual people. They are the jnanis. It is basically the intellect which shows that there are no two separate things. So there cannot be separate origin from the divinity that has come. And these are the people who intellectually they are convinced, and then finally got into the experience of that it is the Brahman which is there everywhere. We have seen such Upanishad sages when they said that Aham Brahmasmi, when he's saying that, it is his experience, and that experience is that he is Brahman himself. It's not based on any particular logic or anything like that, but it is basically directly based on experience, or maybe the logic or the understanding that was there has led into that experience. See, this is something which is very, very important to become. Knowledge can be two different levels. One is a knowledge which can become an experience, and another is a level where knowledge remains as only information. This is what Bertrand Russell said, that knowledge has two informations. One is the type of information, what is called as the acquaintance. And another is the knowledge where that it's not just acquaintance, but it is something which is you felt inside, you experienced inside. This is based on experience. Like, for example, I keep seeing people swimming in the water, and then I know very well that one can swim in the water or one can float in the water. He did not have to drown. But I have never entered into the water. That means to say it's only I peripherally observed. I find that people can float on the water. They don't need to drown. So that now somebody wants to go for a swimming, then I can advise that yes, there is a possibility that you can also flow on the water, But you can also drown in the water, but then you try to have an experience of that. My knowledge is only the knowledge of whatever that I perceived. It's only acquaintance. It's not real knowledge. Whereas somebody who is a swimmer is a person who is it is the knowledge for him because he swims in the water, he goes into the water. This is very crude idea that we see, but then when philosophically, when we go to about the creation, it is much more deeper. Like the way that the river, as long as the river consciousness is there, it is separate from the ocean. But the moment that it becomes one with the ocean, then the river himself is not there, nothing but ocean. So then everything is the same. When the picture is so broad that it is the ocean which has basically become like a river, which has become like a cloud, and then became like rainwater and river. It is like the way that these things are not separate. It's all one and the same thing. And that's what is an experience of ocean is something different from experience of being a river. Now, every river merges into the ocean. Intellectually, we know that. The same way, intellectually, that we can know that, yes, there cannot be scientists says that there are no two separate things from which the creation has started. Earlier that they were having that idea that in the creation has maybe two different entities. Matter is an entity and energy is an entity, and they are separate. Eternally that they are separate. Eternally there is matter. Eternally there is energy. But then later on, somebody merged these two things, saying that matter itself is an energy, and you can fix them with the help of a formula. So this way that now the two does not exist anymore, it becomes one. But then this is basically that a knowledge that comes about by understanding about these things. It's still peripheral. It's not really surface. That means unless until you become knowledge, energy, you become yourself the matter, this will not be understood. So therefore, but we cannot become that. So all the knowledge about the world outside is only a knowledge about acquaintance. Its knowledge is not an experiential knowledge, it's an acquaintance knowledge. Therefore, in a true sense, it's not really knowledge, but it is only an acquaintance. Like for example, an anatomy person knows very clearly that there are various parts of the body that are existing, but then he also knows that body means these things, blood, flesh, this, that, and all those things that are there. But then again, in spite of all that knowledge is there, he can still see the body as body. He can see his wife or a child as a body. It's not that these things are seen. But then there is somebody else that who can feel that they are, who knows that it's all one. So that means to say there is knowledge that is there based on experience, knowledge that is there outside. In fact, a beautiful example for that is that when a patient, when a person goes for surgery and somebody, his wife is anxiously waiting there outside, absolutely unschooled. She has no knowledge at all about anything that is there. But the knowledge of the doctor is there. He knows about everything inside and he is doing the surgery. He does all that surgery. Look at the perception of these two people. And these two people perception is so totally different. For wife, the husband is an individual as a person. And then her anxiety is that, yes, the husband has to come back after that surgery successfully. Whereas the doctor also looks at the person and he also wants the surgery to be completed. But it is not that for him as a person, but for him, he is a patient. For him, he has a sickness and that he has to remedy that. He has to do that operation, surgery. And he also prays to the God. And then wife also prays to the God. But wife prays to the God to bring back her husband. Whereas he prays to the God that his surgery should be successful. And he should not miss any point in surgery. She is also very careful about everything. And he's also very careful about every detail that is there. But that detail that what he has is totally different from the detail that what he feels, the surgeon feels about that. At the end of it also, the surgeon is very happy because that his case has not failed. For him, it is only a case. But for the wife, the husband is like the whole life. So for somebody, God is something like a whole life. For somebody else, God is like an intellectual proposal. Aham Brahmasmi, Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. These are all the proposals. And then how logically, that how rationally that we can convince that, we can apply that. All those things are there. Similarly, like that, once we have come across one Ayurvedic physician, he gave a talk in some small little group, all kinds of things, and say coffee, tea, none of these things you should go for. And what is sattvic food? Sattvic food only is this. You have to take pure milk, not even the sugar in that. All that thing he said. After the talk is over, he said, come on, let's have chai. I said, what is that? Say, what he talked is different from what his own experience. So therefore, basically, these are the two different approaches that are there about the jnana. For somebody, the jnana is something where it is the same Brahman from which everything is come. And the Brahman is something which is ultimate. Whereas for somebody else, the same thing is not just Brahman ultimate, but it is something which is like experiential. That's why when the Rishi, when he says that Isavasyamedam Sarvam, it is coming from his experience. So these are the jnanis, and all these people are the people who are jnanis. Out of jnanis, that some who have the experience, and some people have Shraddha, all right, but then they have the knowledge, but it's not an experience, but it is something which is there as a information that they have. But then the third category of the people are the people who are supposed to be they don't want to merge one with that. They want to be still separate, different from that, because the kind of connection, the kind of feeling that they have, the kind of interaction that they do is so much more grand compared to the idea that I am Brahman. Because as long as you are in this world, as long as you are transacting in this world, you need to transact with somebody or the other. You need to be in contact with something or the other. You need to be doing something or the other. That's what Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita. Nahi kashit kshanamapi jatatistatya karmakrit karyate yavashak karma sarvaha prakriti jai gunaihi. So we need to do activities in this world. The karma is the essential feature of this world. Activity is that world. I can do the activity in a mechanical way, that just like the way that the trees are doing and the rivers are flowing, matter is working. Like the way I can become absolutely materialistic or matter oriented, matter like functioning, absolutely no connection. Just always keep telling that, like the way different grains in the sand and the beach, they are not connected at all. They are just there together. So we are all together like that. This is one way of doing it mechanically. Why you are doing that? There is no purpose. There is no idea. Not only that, there is no joy in doing any activity. There is nothing very special about these things. If you want to find joy, if you want to find something exciting in this, you have to create a competition. You have to create some better than that. All this excitement, these are only artificially created. What is the meaning behind it? There is nothing like that. Whereas on the other hand, I would like to connect with somebody higher, deeper, knowledgeable, Shraddha, and then God, an image that is there. I invoke the divinity in that and see that whole thing I'm actually offering myself to the divinity. This is something which is basically the way the bhakti approach is there. This is the approach of the heart. One is the approach of the head, and the other is approach of the heart. So far, what we have said earlier is the approach of the heart. In approach of the heart, basically, that all these ideas that are there. So when you come to the intellect level, what are these? So many gods and goddesses, that all these things, intellect says that, oh, all these things are nothing but different energies, different powers, different capacities. We made them as gods. So there is no reason for that. There is no need for that. So these are the people who don't have that variety. They don't have this beauty of it. And then you look at the nature, but the nature itself has that variety, beauty. Like, for example, you look at the nature outside, how many different varieties of flowers are there? How many different varieties of plants are there? How many different ways that the species maintain themselves in different forms? Is it not the variety? That's what is the beauty of the creation itself. So all these things which are associated with the beauty, multiplicity, all these things are essentially belong to the heart. That's what he says, that Pruthaktena, that means to say the separateness, individuality. All these things are there. If you get caught up into the level of into the in the hands of intellectuals, then you will be lost. Because the intellect says that there may be variety, but all these things are one and the same thing. Ornaments may be variety, but then the gold is the same. They give all kinds of examples. But the ornament has its own beauty, its greatness that is there. So, but then we don't see that beauty, greatness that is there in the ornament. When we try to see that only that gold is there. So, logical people, intellectual people, that they do not understand this variety, pruthatvena. Pruthatvena is basically to see that there is variety. Mullah Nasruddin was playing his guitar, just only one string that is there is beating and beating and beating. Others who play nice, wonderful music on the guitar. And then his friend asked him, Mullah, what is this? You are just beating one string only. What is this? Look at the others. They are playing so many strings and so many different ways. Mullah replied, said, look, they are trying to find out what is the one single correct note, and they are not yet arrived, therefore that they are still struggling to find out. Whereas I found out what is that one single note. I'm beating that. That means he doesn't know the beauty of the music. He doesn't know beauty of the variety. Now, as much as that this whole creation is from the Brahman, Brahman means that which is unending, Brihat, every awareness that is there, Brahmic Sthiti. The same way creation also has variety and immense variety, immense variety. And when you can admire this immense variety is when you accept deep inside that pruthatvena, that means separateness, independency. Every child born in this world is so unique and separate and different. You look at the children, you can always say, God has not, say, mold for the child to bring about in this world creation. In the others concept that the God created people like that. But whereas Indian concept, it is not like that. His own variety manifests in the form of various things, various people, various objects in this world. So there's umpteen number of variety that is there. When you see the umpteen number of variety, then you celebrate everything. That's what is the idea of pratatvena, separateness. It's not to fight with the Advaita. Dvaita and Advaita, they are not fighting for each other, fighting each other to establish themselves. In fact, when the moment that your Dvaita becomes variety, becomes upasana, that means to say, I admire the presence of the divinity in variety of different ways that when I accept it, and I celebrate that, when I start celebrating that really, then if I see somebody who is vehemently arguing about Advaita, that means say one alone, Brahman, nothing else, all this variety and all that is useless. And I really admire, because out of God's creation, that's also one of the extraordinary, wonderful creation of the God. That's what Ramakrishna showed. When Girish Ghosh continuously argued with Ramakrishna, saying that all this thali and all that, it is nothing, it's all useless, and only one thing is that Brahman, an unmanifest, blah 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 kind of Brahman, that's the only thing which is existing. Ramakrishna goes to him and hugs him and smiles. And then he was confused. He said, what is that? I'm actually putting down Ramakrishna's idea of praying to the Kali, whereas he comes and gives me a hug and in ecstasy. And then they asked, what happened? Ramakrishna said, but for the Divine Mother, a brave intellect like you would not have been created. So all that is just put it into the water. That's all. So that for him, he doesn't have to fight with the Advaitans. Yeah, when I can accept variety, in this variety, even that person is also there. Why fight with that? And somebody else comes and says that, no, sometimes I feel this, sometimes I feel that. Even you're also fine, because basically my variety accepts all those things, Visishta Advaita. Whereas Advaita, yes, Advaita is also wonderful. But if somebody experiences Advaita truly, that means some different, all right, that he sees the same divinity, whether it is in the stone or whether it is in the animals, that he sees the same kind of divinity that is manifesting. The river is the same, and then all these stars and everything, nebula, whatever that you say, is coming from the same central energy that is there. Even the physics is also saying these days the same thing. When I can say that variety comes from that same divinity that is there, I don't even have to fight with somebody who says that Dvaita is right. Says, okay, you are also part of that Advaita. I don't have to be there. If it is a part of your experience, it was never a fight. Therefore, these acharyas, they only propose these ideas based on their experience very strongly. Shankara's experience, one of the suggesting of the Advaita, whereas Ramanuja's experience is Visishtadvaita, Madhva's experience is Dvaita. But unfortunately, the followers keep fighting with that because they are different. Whereas Krishna here in this particular sutra says, Ekatvena, Prutatvena, Bhuta, Vishwato Mukham. So the universal form in many ways and taking me to be diverse in the diverse celestial form. All these things are part of me. And somebody can understand that, accept that. And that's why basically this variety is existing in this particular creation itself. A true sadhaka will not fight with that. A true sadhaka will go for the experience, either one way or the other. But then why people go by one method or the other? People go by one method or the other because that their inner psychology, their way of perception of the world is like that. Somebody might perceive this world from the intellectual point of view, that's a strong point. Or somebody might perceive this world from the emotional point of view, that's a strong point. Somebody can participate in this world wherever it is necessary with respect, otherwise can withdraw. That's what is the third category. All these three kind of people are there. Not only three kind of people, I would say even an individual also goes through the different particular stages. Sometimes it is Dvaita, sometimes it is Advaita, sometimes it's a very special variety of Advaita that it can manifest. So there is no fight between the acharyas, there is no difference between in the acharyas, but only unfortunately the followers fight because for acharyas that's an experience. And for these people, that's what is ego. It is their ego that is fighting. So therefore, basically, it is the fight of the Siddhanta is not correct. The fight of the ego about the Siddhanta, that's what is happening. Like we have these three different egos which are fighting with that. But then basically, when you look at it, the same feeling, somebody's experience is what is called as in the form of what they have given it as dharma. It's my own way of looking at it. And that has been translated in the form of religion. Buddha had his own experience. Mahavir had his own experience. Like that. Even the West also, that you see that Jesus Christ had his own experience. Jalaluddin Rumi had his own experience. So essentially that they had their own experiences, their expression they are given to their experience. They never thought that they wanted to make this as something which is like a religion. Like for example, when Buddha had his experience and he was translating his experience to the people, for almost like several hundred years that it continued like that. Buddhism itself has not been developed. It only when Nagarjuna came, he wrote the Buddhism text. He wrote the ideas of Buddhism. And later on it started. Then Buddhism became so different. And then they have boundaried themselves. And then this is that they are important. When once that this your religion has become like your ego, then all this violence and everything starts. I don't know how much that external elements have brought about this idea, as if it is a statement of that particular person who has realized that he wanted the other faiths to be eliminated. And that probably, I don't think that if it is a true experience of an individual, he would not have thought about that. He would not say like that. Unfortunately, but then if somebody is saying like that, that means to say he has not really realized what is the extent of the divinity. Actually, it is not the question of whether one you accept one philosophy or the other, but the question is that you want to fix your God into within your philosophical boundaries. This is what is unfortunate thing that happens in the world. That is, religions built around these individuals created that kind of diversion that is there. But their nature is different, so they pursued in a nature different way. Like for example, Mahavir, he was somebody who was absolute jnani. For him, that there is only one thing that is there. He didn't even want to call it as the God or anything like that. That he just only thing that is there is the self. That alone is what that is there, which you call it as anything. And he was only sitting and meditating and absorbing himself in that state. Because jnana, the ultimate of jnana is to get absorbed into that. Aham Brahmasmi, getting absorbed into that. Whereas bhakti, it is not like that. Bhakti is somebody who dances. You ask Mahavir to dance, you can't expect that because Mahavir's psychology, way of life, cannot undergo with that kind of thing. Whereas, on the other hand, Mirabai is somebody who can dance. But you ask Mirabai to just sit down like Mahavir, don't think of Krishna or anything, that only absolute Brahman is there. Look at the way, what the reaction that Mirabai can have it. In fact, somebody else stays other than Krishna. Look at even with that small little simple things, what is the reaction of Mirabai? He says, how can there be any other man other than only the God, Krishna that is there? So this Prithaktvena is the one way basically that somebody who really feels the presence of divinity, upasana, and that happens with him. So Mahatmanastumam Partha, Daivim Prakutamashrataha, Daivi Sampati goes into the Prakriti, Bhajantya Ananya Manasaha, Jnatva, Bhutadim Abhyayam. This is where basically the bhakti movement. Satatam Kirtayanto Mam Yatantasche Dhradavrataha Namasyantascha Mam Bhaktya Nityayukta Upasate. By whatever way possible that they do this particular upasana. And this particular culture has given such an extraordinary, wonderful entry into this area. Therefore, we have so many puja, so many different ways of worshipping, so many times that from time to time, the things keep changing, adapting to the present situation. This has always been happening for 10,000 years. So today, in the 21st century, that we are trying to do something, according to present day's idea, well, go ahead and do it. Because all that what is more important thing is to see that God's divine presence that's being there is very important. Satatam kirtayanto mam. Living that, dancing that, feeling, and then singing that feeling. What an extraordinary thing that is there. Yesterday there was a program that we had about the music, and where the person rendered Muthuswami Dikshita's kritis. Oh my God, when you listen to those kritis, I heard that his one of all the various Vagyakaras, all the musicians of which, he is one person who did everything in pure Sanskrit, very high standard Sanskrit. That means to say, for the knowledge wise, for the depth wise, his Sanskrit is extraordinary. Added to that, the kind of different ragas for which that he created those things is so extraordinary. That means to say, his knowledge of Geya, that means to say music, and the science of music is also something so extraordinary. And on top of it, yesterday the person who was singing also giving various yantras that were there and the various chakras that were there. The amount of detail that he has gone into singing all those things, kritis that he were there, amazing. That means to say how many different ways that you can really create God's glory. And you see, it tends more towards intellect, but at the same time, there is a bhakti behind it. There's total devotion behind it. So that means for somebody who is so highly knowledgeable also that he can create this variety in this world, he can create. But absolutely, there is no knowledge also. Such a person also creates such a wonderful variety. Is it not that we can see how many people, how many ways, different ways, they created those gods and then they go forward. Is it not something extraordinary? If you do not have that intellectual ego, intellectual one-upmanship, then all these things you appreciate. You can really praise the whole thing. Jnana yajnena chapanyante yajanto mam upasate ekatvena pratakwena bhavata Vishwato Mukham. Now, this Jnana Yajna is the way that he looks at this. Another perspective that he brings about, the perspective of Jnana comes from, Yajna and Jnana, they have the same root. Jnasyati, Jnatva, all these things have the same root as Jnana. From that, yajna also comes. From that also, this jnana comes. Whatever that's happening in the form of creation and the way that you involve in this creation and the whole thing that is involved in this creation, look at it in the form of yajna, the way that you day-to-day activities that you bring about. That's why in this particular culture that we have this idea of doing this yajna, recently that we had this temple consecration of this Dakshinamurti. Wow, the kind of variety of yajnas that he has done and the way that the priest was doing with that kind of dedication. Actually, when you look at all that dedication that he was doing, the whole process is so critically intellectual, but at the same time that you could see the beauty of devotion behind it. And that's where he said at the end of it, he explained all these rituals before that, it was like a stone, and then a stone that you carved into some pictures, images, and then you name that images. This is Dakshinamurti, this is Navagrahas, and this is what is Dhanvantari, etc. And afterwards, there are a number of rituals of purification. To start with our own purification, then the purification of those things. Day after day after day, in 3 days, he says that the stone now has become the divinity. And what an extraordinary, wonderful feeling. As a stone that it was sitting there, it was okay. But then the moment it is sitting inside the temple, people go and worship that. What an extraordinary, wonderful transformation that has happened in the stone. If you can really translate in our life, whatever that is there, the stonehood that is there within us, can be transformed, translated into divinity within us. This way of translating the divinity from the stone to the highest of the divinity that we can bring about is what is called as yajna drishti. Everything in this world that's happening is like a process of God, process of highest divinity, and that is what is happening. Whether it is the star formation, from that, all the planet formation, from the planets, these various creatures coming up, again dissolving whole thing into the one big, infinite, unmanifest level. Is it not something like a yajna that is there? Without any residue behind it, without any minus, my being, without having that kind of a thing, if you just offer it, you are also part of that yajna drishti. So that is what is the idea. He says that jnana yajna. Now this is what is jnana yajna. Understanding this yajna, and then through the knowledge that you have, and then trying to put it into the day-to-day life and doing this various yajna aspect that's going on. It's what is jnana yajna. Yajante mam upasate. So there it is, upasana bhajante. That means to say, their upasana is one of bhakti. That means glory of the God. Remember the God. And you are sheltered under God. You are separate from the God. That's what is bhajante. And that is one of the ideas of going to the God. And here he says that yajante mam upasate. It is yajna way that they do the upasana. Bhajana way doing the upasana is one aspect of it. Yajna way of doing the upasana is the second aspect of it. Every time that you are involving in this world with any activity or the other, it is nothing but this yajna activity that's happening. One small little element that I will try to bring about in this whole process that went on in that temple activity that's going on. He produced the fire. Actually, there is what is called as karni, and it is wood, and then they have to create, he creates a friction in that wood and then produces the fire. I mean, it was an ancient technique. We have now improved so many matchboxes and the lighters, etc. Everything has come. But then look at the way that he still produced the fire, like the way that he produced right from the church. And then he says that it is called as the fire has to come garbhadana. It's a very beautiful concept that he brought about. Garbhadana. So in that garbhadana, there is so much of churning that's going on. And that he did it, and he produced the fire. It took almost like half an hour to bring about that fire. And then one small little spark of fire that has come, And then he provided nice, wonderful jute cushions. How beautiful that they were. And he kept the fire in that jute cushion that were there, so that from the jute it catches the fire. The way that he said, explicit, that it gives me such a great pleasure that I gave birth to a child. That analogy is so beautiful, that what is the childbirth? From the mother's womb that the child comes out. Is it not something such an extraordinary, wonderful thing? That kind of an expression that he said, that the fire has come, this is a child that is taken birth. Let's protect it. Let's see that. And this fire, which is supposed to be so sacred, so pure, it's like a birth of the child. Now, it is going to work for the next 3 days to see that the whole transformation takes place. Every fire that is ceremony that was there is lit by this fire, and then it was so extraordinary. Finally, it was taken inside the temple, and then where the god goes inside. Oh, every element was like, for example, this yajna. That means to say, it is my own knowledge with the help of my intellect. I create the divinity. I create the divinity in various forms. And that's why he says that Jnana yajnena chapanye yajanto mam upasate. Bhajante mam upasate, yajante mam upasate. Now, this yajna drishti we can bring about in every activity that we do it. Eating food is like a yajna way, and everything that is there offered, and that is nothing but him, the divinity. That's why in the next sutra he says that aham kratur aham yajnaha swadaham aham aushadam mantroham ahameva yajnam aham agniraham hutam. The fire is him, and all this wood that you offer to the fire is him. And the one who does that fire element, I am the Vedic ritual, I am the whole ritual that's going on, and that whole ritual is him. And I am this offering that is there, yajna, and I am the offering to the departed souls. And then swadham aham aushadam, aham aushadam, I am the heritage, I am the herbage and the food grains. I'm all these food grains that goes into the offering of the yajna. It's all me. And mantro hamas aham. The various mantras that they say is that they are all nothing but him only. Ahameva ajyam. That means to say even the clarified butter or the ghee that is there going into the fire. Aham. Agnihi aham. Aham ahutam. That means somebody. The whole offering process is within me. And here, this particular idea of Agni, offering, of all these things, one thing that is impure about is the very beautiful concept that he brings about, that let the whole activity be in a pure way, in a purified way. That idea that he brings about, the ghee. There is also another Brahmarpanam Brahmahavi, in that shloka also it was there. Ghee is something which is basically milk that you put in the fire. It only quenches fire, but then transformation that takes place in the milk into the buttermilk, into the curds, and then you churn the curds and then come out of the butter, simmer it on that, and then you bring about the ghee. That ghee assists the fire. So in that form, it assists the fire. So therefore, basically, the transformation has to come from within us. And once the first thing is that has to happen is to see that we transform ourselves from the material world, progressing into the going into the world outside, to turning inwards. And that is the first transformation. And that's what is the idea. Milk becoming yogurt, the curds. And then the churning that takes place is a sadhana that we go through, purification process that we go through. All that when happens, then what happens is that you emerge out yourself to be like a ghee without any residue behind it. The ghee is then something which assists the fire, not only assists the fire, but at the end of it, it does not leave any residue of vasana, any residue of samskara. And that's what is the liberation that takes place. You are in this world, but at the same time, you are liberated in such a way that you leave this world without any vasanas or some. That purified form is the way that it is given. Imagine how many millions of great sages, millions of sages have gone through that experience. They created this procedure, they created the mantras, they created the whole lot of activity that's behind it. It is tapasya of billions of people in this culture. That's why this is one culture where God has his signature. Every aspect of it in such a way it takes towards the spirituality. This is the only culture which has the purpose of life to go towards that spirituality. That's what Krishna is trying to impress upon Arjuna. The fight that you are fighting, the war, it's also nothing but the journey towards spirituality. If that can be done, I'm sure that everything can be a journey towards spirituality, that we can do it. Now let us stop it here. Another interesting concept that he brings about in the next sutra, that is 17th and 18th and 19th sutras. We will look into that next time when we meet. Hari Om. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Today it was very nice, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really beautiful. I don't know how